if you know, you know. And that one goes out to all my Hulkamaniacs this morning. I mentioned it yesterday when we learned of Hulk Hogan's passing. Not a wrestling fan myself, but I was a younger person at one time. Far less cranky then. Well, no, actually, you know what? I take that back. Ask my parents about their whiny little kid. That was me. I've just turned into a whiny little adult. Anyway, I don't watch wrestling at all anymore. And I make jokes at my friends who are of a certain age and still do indulge. But hey, you have your guilty pleasures. I have mine. And that apparently is some Hulk Hogan-esque theme song. And so, in honor of the late wrestling icon, Hulk Hogan, we play for you this morning, I Am American, to begin our show. It's a Friday, or as I like to say, a Fry-yay morning, the 25th of July. Thanks very much for being a part of our show. We got to take in a show last night on stage at the Hamilton Family Theatre in Cambridge, one of Drayton's theatres, of course. And it was a nostalgic one for me because Jesus Christ Superstar was being staged. I remember going to see that as a young lad when it was put on by the students at St. Jerome's. My father was a teacher there. And then I was a performer in Jesus Christ Superstar, one of two high school musicals that I was a part of. So it was pretty neat to hear all those songs again and the memories that they brought back. My claim to fame, I used it multiple times over the dinner table as our daughter also got into the theater. And I said, I once sang a solo at the center in the square, which is an exaggeration of what happened, but it's true. The opening song of the second act that begins with "Look at all my trials and tribulations," the director of the show, heck, he might have done that just because I was the principal's kid. Yeah, my dad not only taught at St. Jerome's and took me to see Superstar when I was a kid, but then when I was a student at St. Jerome's, my dad was the principal of the school. Good times. If you ever want to hear those stories, just ask. Anyway, I don't know how I got picked to do that, but I got to sing a line all by myself on that stage at the center in the square, and I will still claim it as my own moment of fame to this very day.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever
All right, let's get to those 5 things, your Farwell Show 5 for this Friday morning. Number 1, after Waterloo's admission yesterday that live streaming cameras meant for minor hockey games were left running during summer camps, Cambridge and Kitchener have followed suit. In Kitchener's case, the live barn cameras have been active since April. The incident has been reported to the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. Number 2, the red-hot Blue Jays beat the American Central leading Tigers last night, and they did so in convincing fashion.
Hit in the air, deep left field, going back, Riley Green at the wall, it's gone! Clement making him pay for the intentional walk to Barger. A 3-run homer, and the Blue Jays have blown it open, leading 4-1 in the top of the 6th.
And the Jays would add 4 more. They had 5 in that inning. They scored 4 in the 7th, 2 more in the 8th. It all added up to an 11-4 win. The Jays now with 61 wins on the season. That is the most wins in the American League. And it's tied with Milwaukee for the most wins in baseball. Your Blue Jays. That's right. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Guelph Council has chosen its newest member. Catherine Hauser will fill a vacancy on Guelph Council after the seat was left open when the previous holder won a successful bid, Dominique O'Rourke that was, for federal government. Hauser was one of 26 people to apply for the council seat, and then council made its choice from those 26. It gets even better, though. After a tie vote in the end, Hauser won the council seat by having her name drawn from a box. So you listen to 26 people, you vote, and the final 2, it's a 6-6 tie. So they put the 2 names into a box, and Catherine Hauser's name was drawn. These are the banana republics we live in. Anyway, congratulations, I suppose, to the newest councillor in Guelph. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Last weekend's annual Scotland's Yard ball hockey tournament raised more than $150,000 for the Waterloo Regional Health Network, supporting pediatric cancer care in our community. In 4 years, the tournament, led by Local NHLer Ben Sherratt and his wife Jacqueline has raised more than $1 million. And number 5, get your car washed this weekend right here at the Boardwalk. Students in Conestoga College's firefighting program are hosting a fundraising car wash in support of wounded warriors. It runs from 11 until 3 tomorrow right here at the Boardwalk. And speaking of cars, tunes about cars are being featured on our All Request Friday today. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Friday morning. Something else we do on Friday mornings, your not $1 million question. I've got it for you. Let's see if you can answer it. All you get is bragging rights and, of course, our undying admiration. But quickly, let's go to the phones because JB is here, and I'm sure he's got to correct me on something I said about Hulk Hogan. Hey, JB.
He's a psychic.
Well, what was wrong? That's the song you told me to play.
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong. It's one of those things where we just have to be careful because, as great as he was in the ring, he was also equally a massive disaster in public life afterwards, be it, his alcoholism or his open racism and open homophobia and all that. So I like to tread lightly when celebrating, someone like Hulk Hogan, just because of the controversies, we'll say.
Yeah, and appreciate it, JB. And trust me, I get it. And believe you me, it crossed my mind. Life is messy, period. But in this case, I made the choice that I made, and you're welcome to share your opinion on that. But he was a larger-than-life pop culture wrestling icon. No question. There were issues in the personal life, and we can pick apart lots of things about it, including his most recent appearances at rallies for the President of the United States. But I have this theory that I like to put forward, and I call it, I can't say it exactly how I say it off the air, but we'll just say this. Jerks never die. Okay, so Hulk Hogan was loved by some, was loved by many. He's got family, he's got friends, and even some people who were opposed to him politically or otherwise would say nice things upon his passing. It's just kind of what we do. So what we did was play about 60 seconds of a song that was connected to Hulk Hogan, because whether you loved him or you did not love him, he passed away and we all knew of Hulk Hogan. Hence the choice we made this morning. But I'm always happy to hear your thoughts on the choices that we make. All right, let's get to the not $1 million question for this Friday morning. I have to name it this way because the first time I ever did this, I called it the $1 million question, and then one of you asked, if I get it right, do I get $1 million? No. So I want to be very careful about this. There is no money. There is, however, our admiration for your keen intelligence, and we'll pat you on the back for it. About 10% of Canadians actually think this will happen in their lifetime. What do you think it is? 10% of Canadians actually think this will happen in their lifetime. What do you think it is? Would love to hear your guess to the answer of the not $1 million question. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. About 10% of Canadians actually think this is going to happen in their lifetime. What do you think it is? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Mustang Sally, guess you better slow your Mustang down.
First car I ever owned. Oh, a 1969 Mustang. Had a 351 Windsor in it, but I said, no. I was a teenager. Dropped a 390 big block in there. Oh, added some blackjack headers, a 750 dual pump and carb. Let me tell you, Mustang Sally buddy guy for Mark on this All Request Friday, Car Tunes edition. If it's got a car in it or makes reference to a car, it's allowed on this All Request Friday. Again, that one for Mark, also known as number 39 on our official Farwell Show listeners list that we just started this week. Thank you for the request, Mark. wondering if you know the answer to our not $1 million question today. About 10% of Canadians actually think this will happen in their lifetime. What do you think it is? We'll go to the phones and find out if we know what it is. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you think?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Win the lottery.
Bill, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, and I'm one of the 10.
Wait, what? You won the lottery?
No. That's what we think will happen.
How do you know this?
Because I'm one of the. Well, I want to win the lottery too.
Well, everybody wants to, but actually, I want to win it too, Bill. But thinking actually believing you're going to win it and just wanting to win it, I think are two different things, aren't they?
This is true.
Well, Bill, congratulations. I don't know the last time. I don't think this has ever happened before. The first guess is the correct guess. About 10% of Canadians actually think they will win the lottery in their lifetime. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, listen.
I had a Mustang too. That was my first car.
Come on. What year was yours?
67 ragtop.
Get that.
289.
Come on. I saw a guy cruising through the boardwalk here after work when I left one day this week, and I don't know what year it was, but it was that vintage. It was the convertible. He was having a good day. I was very jealous.
I didn't treat it very well.
Same. I was too young and foolish at the time. Good for you. Well, Bill, listen, thanks for playing along with us this morning. And since you do believe that you're going to win the lottery someday, how about kicking a little bit your favorite radio host's way? I mean, assuming, of course, this is your favorite radio host.
If I actually win, I'm happy to.
All right. Don't give any of that to Daryl Law or anything like that. I'm not going to stand for it. Or Brady and Tara. None for them. Just for me, okay?
Never. It won't happen.
Thanks, Bill. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Mike. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. My guess, for what it's worth, on the not $1 million question today was an alien invasion / landing. Like they would come down, like landing right at the corner of King and Victoria Street, kind of alien landing. That was what I thought maybe 10% of Canadians thought would happen in their lifetime. But no, the answer, as nailed by Bill on the first guess today, is win the lottery. I, too, want to win. I don't actually believe I'm going to, though. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Star by Deep Purple on this All Request Friday featuring cartoons. That one for Preston Paul, a.k.a. number 45 on the official list of Farwell Show listeners. We were talking, Devin Robertson and I. Devin's our guy on the other side of the glass today. And I said to him, like, how does somebody get our not $1 million question on the first guess? And Devin said, what are the odds? I'm like, about the odds of winning the lottery, because apparently that's what 10% of Canadians believe will happen in their lifetime, that they're going to win the lottery. Just ahead of our 9:30 update, let's go to the phones. Rudy, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mike. Having a day off. I enjoy that, making breakfast. Anyway, how about the song? Maybe somebody already picked it. Highway to Hell.
It's on the list, my friend. It's on the list.
Okay.
All right, Rudy. Thanks very much. We've already got a dozen tunes on the list today. We'll play as many as we can between now and 1 this afternoon. I think we can fit in a couple more than a dozen, but Highway to Hell is already on there. Not to give too much away. I mean, the beauty of All Request Friday is you listen, you wait to hear what the next song's going to be, and the next topic of conversation, and the next person who joins us on the phone lines, which just so happens to be number 45, Preston Paul, who requested Highway Star from Deep Purple. Morning, Paul.
Ooh, put some goosebumps on my arms and neck like that.
Attaboy.
I love that song. It even sounds great on AM.
It's not bad, eh? We can do okay. Like, listen, if you're an audiophile, go and put on your headphones somewhere. But we're going to get by on AM radio these days.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, no, good Blue Jay win last night.
Massive.
I can't believe Bill got that guess right off the bat. I'd have never guessed that.
What was your thought?
I was going to say that the Jays win the World Series, Leafs win the Stanley Cup.
That would Leafs win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, no kidding.
And my second one was a little negative, but I thought maybe World War III. But,
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I was figuring maybe 10% figure the Jays would win long before those Maple Leafs.
Be nice now, Paul. Come on.
And can we change Donald Trump's name to President Dump? Would that be possible?
I mean, I think we should give him the respect he deserves as the holder of the highest political office in the land. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Paul, thanks very much. Speaking of the President of the United States, or the United States in general, my buddy Craig sent me a text during the commercial break and said he, too, was going to guess winning the lottery as our not $1 million question answer today. He said the alien invasion, which was my guess, has already happened. Just look at the United States. Fair point by you, Craig. You always bring points to the show that make me think. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update now, and then let's talk about the verdict. Need I say more? I don't think so, but we will talk about it and say more after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
To anyone who is surprised or angered by today's outcome, it is the direct result of the media's ongoing failure to publicize the weaknesses in the prosecution's case as it unfolded. Almost every single feature of the evidence that Justice Caracia identified today as fatal flaws for the Crown was known to prosecutors and to police from 2018. Today's outcome was not just predictable, it was predicted.
That's Megan Savard, the lawyer for Carter Hart, one of 5 members of a World Junior Hockey team from Canada, accused of a sexual assault in a London hotel room back in 2018, and yesterday found not guilty. I think it's important to emphasize that ruling in court, not guilty, which does not mean innocent. It simply means that the Crown prosecutors could not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But more on that, I'm sure, as this conversation progresses. Let's begin with Sarah Castleman, who's the executive director at the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. Sarah, good morning, and thank you for making time for us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Are you surprised in any way by the verdict that was delivered yesterday?
No, I'm not surprised at all. We kind of saw the trial going that way in a variety of different ways. But what you were sharing is absolutely important for folks to have in mind right now, that not guilty does not mean innocent of causing harm. And legal exoneration doesn't equate to moral vindication. So there's a deep harm that occurred, and that finding doesn't erase it. And I think that's really important to understand that our criminal justice system works on the premise of beyond a reasonable doubt. And if we, used a system, and I'm not advocating for it, but if the system was a balance of probabilities, the outcome might have been different.
What can we take away from this trial and even its outcome? What can we learn here?
For me, the trial was, there was many learnings throughout it. As I say that, I'm thinking, the learnings seem to be consistent from the different major cases that have hit the news over the years. I've been doing this work for 23 years in our community, and a lot of the similar things were seen in like the Ghomeshi case. I'm thinking of cases like, Cosby, Weinstein. Like there's a lot of similarities between cases. So there's a couple of things that are standing out for me. One, a lot of the pitfalls of our legal system were really made visible in this trial. So we know that EM originally brought forward, went to the police in 2018, and the police didn't, move forward with charges. We know that there was 2 juries dismissed in this case. So it was basically the third trial that moved forward. Very challenging. We know that in this case, EM's feelings of shame and regret, which are common for so many survivors, were interpreted as indicators of her consent, which is absolutely not the case. So there's just so many different issues with this trial, issues of rape myths still existing within our justice system and within the dialogue that folks were having online and in person and in the media about the case. So I would say that there are pieces that harmed survivors for sure who were listening to this. But there are actions that we can take moving forward. So the issue of consent was central in this trial. And I think that one of the takeaways is we need to do a better job of educating young people and educating young men about the issue of consent.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to move, however slightly, in that direction, not forgetting the young woman in the midst of all of this who, regardless of the verdict in this case, is left picking up the pieces. But there is this issue that you just touched on of consent, of working with young men, because hockey culture, if you will, was front and center throughout this trial. I know that there is a Male Allies program, and I love it that you run through the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. I know your organization, Sarah, works closely with our Kitchener Rangers Hockey Club, which is the exact age of these young men that were involved in this incident. What do those conversations sound like? What work can we do and continue to do with young men to hopefully avoid something similar in the future?
I really like that you talked about, not dismissing or not paying enough attention to the reality of EM's experience in this. I honestly cannot imagine what she's been through since 2018, truthfully. And she has shown incredible courage. I think probably that when the police came forward and decided that they did want to move forward with charges after these many years, she was actually upset and she didn't want to because she had tried to move forward with her life. So this is bringing up, it's now been 7 years. And so the impact on her and the impact of other survivors that are seeing what trials can look like or seeing how people talk about them has been significant. And what I will say is she's shown courage, and really her courage is our call to action. And so while there are many survivors that make the choice to move forward with our justice system, I think that it's very easy for folks to see the pitfalls at the same time. So our center will support survivors. We're here for survivors, whether they choose to move forward with the criminal justice system or whether they just choose to focus on their healing journey in other ways. But moving forward to the conversations around the Kitchener Rangers and Rangers Reach, our center has been doing consent education, bystander intervention training with the Rangers, I think, for almost 10 years. And we actually developed the curriculum that all OHL players are using across the province. And what we know with hockey culture is that there is an issue with a toxic culture that leads to sexual violence. We know that locker room talk where there's women are degraded is very problematic, and it's really a continuum and a sliding scale that leads towards sexual violence. So the kinds of conversations that we have with hockey players are around understanding the nuances of consent. If someone is inebriated, they can't consent. And again, that was core to this this particular trial. And all the different pieces of consent can be withdrawn at any point, that it has to be informed. And so if these young men had much more exposure and training to what informed consent looks like, I really hope that they would have made a different decision.
Sarah, I really appreciate you making time for the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Sarah Castleman is the executive director of the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. The verdict, not guilty on all counts, an acquittal of the 5 men accused in this case. Your reaction to, thoughts on the verdict as it was delivered yesterday. Would be interested in your perspective on the Mike Farwell Show. Let's talk about it. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
If someone is inebriated, they can't consent. And again, that was core to this particular trial. And all the different pieces of consent can be withdrawn at any point, that it has to be informed. And so if these young men had much more exposure and training to what informed consent looks like, I really hope that they would have made a different decision.
Sarah Castleman, Executive Director of the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region, joining us to talk about the verdict. And I'm so glad that our guy on the other side of the glass, Devin Robertson, picked that particular clip because it puts the focus on the young men in that room. Look, not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ick involved in this story, if you'll forgive that usage of the word, but there's just so much that is unsettling about that evening. And we can talk about bad decisions being made by every single person, every single one in that room. But I think it's important that the focus really be on the young men, not guilty or otherwise. Just think of what we know about what happened in that room and the opportunity at any point along the path for one of those young men to put a stop to it. If that was your son, how would you feel about them engaging in behavior like that, treating a woman in that way? I don't know. I have a hard time all around here, verdict notwithstanding. Let's go to the phones here from you. Jim, number 68. Good morning.
Hey, buddy. You know I'm a big proponent of junior hockey. This culture needed to be exposed in junior hockey, in hockey in general. But one of the things that kind of irks me is the London police. And I'm a proponent of the police. I wouldn't want to do their job. They have a thankless task. But with the judge saying she found the complainant's testimony not being credible. Well, the London police would have had a minimum of 3 sets of interviews with the complainant. And I'm not trying to blame the complainant, but to me, it was a witch hunt on behalf of the London police that they kind of had egg on their face because the initial investigation they didn't charge. And then they settled with the victim complainant settled with Hockey Canada, and then London went, "Oh boy, we got something here, so we're gonna force this through." So between the Crown and the London police, they dropped the ball on this and cost, I don't know how many millions of dollars in legal fees and court costs, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Jim, and you're not wrong. The first time around, not grounds for charges, and then the challenge 7 years later. I mean, do you think you might remember things differently or details being fuzzier after 7 years? But something transpired from the original interviews and complaint, no charges laid, to what ultimately became this trial that captivated the entire country. I just want to focus on one other part that Jim brought to bear here. And it's a separate story, but one I hope we don't lose sight of. And that, for me, is the way Hockey Canada handled all of this. And I'll use handled in air quotes here, because there was a payout of many millions of dollars from this slush fund that we suddenly learned Hockey Canada had built for itself out of the fees that you pay to have your kids play hockey. Think about that for a moment. The executive at Hockey Canada, for years, built up this slush fund to pay people off, essentially hush money, in cases just like this. And Hockey Canada continues to exist as an entity, never had its name changed. The same logo exists today. I love the game of hockey. I love junior hockey like Jim just acknowledged he does. But I think Hockey Canada as an organization needs to be blown up and rebuilt all over again. New name, new logo, new face, you name it. Because I don't think that can be overlooked as a secondary story to all that has just transpired in a London courtroom. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Little bit of Canadian content with our cartoons. All Request Friday here on the program. Gino Vanelli's Black Cars, requested by Ron, number 32 on our official listeners list. You make the request today, we play it. I have a request in exchange, though, and I admit this is self-serving and greedy, okay? But I mentioned Ron, number 32 on our official listeners list. This started as kind of a lark on Monday, and I thought we could fill in listeners 1 through 46, because I met somebody last weekend who said he would officially be our 46th listener. And some way, somehow, we managed to fill all 46 before Monday's show ended. Well, now here we are on Friday with 3 hours to go in the show, where I get greedy and self-serving, because we were at 90 is all I can I don't know how we got to this point, but I want to reach triple digits before the end of the show today. That's I know it's greedy, it's self-serving, but can you get us there? Would you like to claim your spot on the official Farwell Show listeners list? You can't pull my leg on this. You got to be like a dyed-in-the-wool fan of this program. We might even give you a skill testing question, but would love to have you claim one of our final 10 numbers. Can we do that today and get to 100 before we sign off at 1 this afternoon? My goodness gracious, my week will be made if we can actually pull that off, and would love to add your name to our list of official listeners. Give us a call or drop me an email, mike@570news.com. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. I mean, is it a car tune or a tune by the Cars? You roll, though. That's what the wheels on a car do, right? Or a bus. They go round and round. We've learned these things. That one by request from Curtis. Number 16 on our official listeners list. Let the Good Times Roll by the Cars this All Request Friday. A day during which you can still request your place on our official list of listeners. Drop me an email, mike@570news.com. We've got 10 spots left to be claimed before we get to 100. Imagine that. You and 99 other people listening to this show at the same time. I think the pet of our next guests was letting the good times roll. Ruby found her opening, and boy, oh boy, did she take advantage. I'll let the people closer to the story, though, tell it, because they'll tell it better than I do, as we welcome Emily Rutledge to the program this morning. Emily, good morning.
Good morning.
And along with Emily, Crystal Chilvers is with us as well. I'm going to need Devin's help on this, though, and Devin's busy. So I'm just going to stick with Emily for a minute here. Thank you for making the time. Ruby is the pet I was referencing that I think found some good times. Let the good times roll. You live in Guelph, and Ruby got away. Can you start by telling us that story? What happened?
Yeah, so we don't know exactly how it happened. Ruby's not an outdoor cat. She's always been indoors. And on May 21st, we, in the evening, realized that she wasn't around. We were, taking the treat bag and wondering why she wasn't coming, and then realized she wasn't in the house. We looked literally everywhere, couldn't find her. And then it was like maybe 9 p.m. when we started panicking, and it was dark outside and it was pouring rain, and we went out and looked around the house but couldn't find her, and we still don't know exactly how she got out, but I think the door might have been left open and she got spooked and ran off. And so we couldn't find her, and then started the 26-day long search for Ruby.
We've got Crystal with us as well. Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning.
How did that search start then? Like Emily mentions, around 9 o'clock, okay, the panic starts to set in. Our indoor cat is now outdoors somewhere. What do you start doing in an effort to find Ruby?
Well, we started looking around our house first. And then actually our children came home from their other parents' house. And so first we had to tell them that the cat was missing.
Oh, no. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So we actually all went out. So they went with, one of them went with their dad, and he went off in one direction. And then the rest of us went in another direction. One person stayed home, and we just ran everywhere. And we just moved in January. So we thought, we walked all the way back to the old house to see if maybe she went there. And I think we searched till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then we were like, okay, we have to start again tomorrow.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously you do the immediate search. You look back to the old house. Emily, you mentioned it was a 26-day odyssey. You do have Ruby back, but where did Ruby return?
So on June 16th, when we've pretty much given up all hope on ever finding her again, we had been actually chasing a black cat that looked very similar to her, like a couple blocks over. And we thought it was her. Turned out maybe not. But on June 16th, we got a call from the microchip company saying someone has scanned your cat's microchip. They found her. This is their contact information. Reach out to her and arrange, figure out where your cat is and how to get her back. So we called this number, and it was this lovely woman named Alicia who said, hey, I found your cat. And we were like, cool, can we have her back? And she was like, yeah, you're in Guelph though, right? And we were like, yeah, where are you? And she said, I'm in Toronto. And we were like, what? How the heck did Ruby get all the way to Toronto?
And that's when we thought that maybe it was a scam.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
First thought was, why would somebody say that? Like, there's no way she got to Toronto. This must be a scam.
So I called the vet office to verify the chip number, and then called the Humane Society to say, does this sound like something that could happen? And they gave us scenarios where cats have gotten into cars, or people have picked up cats and taken them in cars, or gotten on a stopped train. And sort of at that point, we sort of looked at each other and thought, well, that might have happened because there's a train that runs by our house not far down the road. And we were like, maybe she got on the train.
Wow. It's fascinating to me. And listen, 26 days to get to Toronto. Welcome to anybody else that tried driving the 401, right? Like, there you go.
Yes. Somebody looked it up and said that she could actually walk there in that time.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what's it been like since you've been reunited with Ruby? How's she doing? Did she told you anything about her adventure?
We keep asking, and
she refuses to talk.
She is extra affectionate, I would say, and stays away from the doors. So we were at first worried that she might want to go out more. Nope, she's afraid. And her and her sister have started to get along.
Okay. See, she realizes how good she had it all this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible stuff. And I think a lesson to take away from all of this, folks, is have your pets microchipped so that we know where they are, right? And reunions like this can be possible.
And
100%.
Can we have a shout out to Kate, who sort of organized and was the lawn that we hung out on for 26 days, thinking that Ruby was walking around the neighborhood.
Oh, my gosh.
We went daily. We put up posters, and loads of families afterwards. That was the other part, was loads of families have said that they went out every night looking for Ruby, as their evening stroll. So it's a pretty amazing neighborhood to live in, too.
You Guelphites, you're good people. I've never said anything other than that. Good folks in Guelph, and what a happy reunion. Have you changed any of your behaviors just to ensure that little Houdini Ruby doesn't escape again?
We're very strict on getting the kids to close the door behind them.
Yeah.
Even if it's only for a second that they're stepping outside. They're used to, at our old house, we had like a screen door that would close automatically. We don't have a screen door at this house, which is why I think the door got left open. So we're trying to drill it into their heads that the door always needs to be closed.
I'm so glad there's a happy ending to this. And I so appreciate the both of you making time for our show this morning. Time away from your precious time with Ruby, of course. So thank you very much for being here. And I'm glad this was a happy ending.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily Rutledge and Crystal Chilvers joining us on the show this morning. Ruby ran away, the 5-year-old indoor black cat, and was found 26 days later in Toronto. Now reunited. That's the happy ending to the story. How in HE double hockey sticks Ruby got all the way to Toronto, that remains a mystery, because as you heard Crystal say, Ruby ain't talking. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Here they come, the boys in the bright white sports car, waving their arms in the air. Who do they think they are? And where did they get that car?
Little bit of Trooper, more CanCon. That's right, the boys in the bright white sports car by request for Heather, number 25 on our official listeners list. We are playing your car tunes during this all request Friday on the show today. I will bet that you have seen these things before, but maybe you don't know what they are. I put my hand up and include myself in that category because, yes, I have seen these little stuffies, I would say, most often dangling from backpacks, although I have seen the occasional post on social media about them. To me, they resemble a gremlin. If you're of a certain vintage like I am, you might remember the gremlins from the 1980s, but they've got these demonic smiles. That's the only way I can describe it. Anyway, they're the latest craze in toys not just for kids, I think for young adults as well. And they're raising some concern in certain corners, let's say. Jing Wan is an associate professor of marketing at the Lang School of Business and Economics at the University of Guelph and joins us to talk about it. Jing, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
What concerns you about this Labubu? I should have said that, too. These things are called Labubu dolls. What concerns you about this Labubu doll craze?
So Labubu dolls, they've really taken over. I would say even taken over the world, right? They originated in China from a retailer called Pop Mart, who specializes in these sort of blind box toys. But with the Labubus, they spread everywhere. Right now, we're talking about them. And the concern with them is this sort of buying style of a blind box. So when people buy Labubus, typically, if you're trying to buy one of these blind box ones instead of buying them in a set, you're basically gambling to get the specific model of a specific Labubu that you're hoping you can get. So the problem with that is then you're spending money on a whole bunch of probably Labubus that you don't want. And so that encourages a lot of overconsumption, that these toys are made of plastic. They're wrapped in plastic. And then they have a box outside of that as well. So it's creating a lot of plastic waste. This is not really recyclable material, except maybe the paper box that comes outside. So, yeah.
I wonder if there's any concern, too, around, you talked about this, you're essentially like gambling or playing a little bit of a lottery system, trying to get that Labubu that you want. And for young people, this is, creating a habit of sorts.
Yeah, and I think that's really concerning because, buying toys is part of childhood, right? Teenagehood and so on and so forth. Anyone who wants to collect toys, that's cool. But there is that element of gambling in this case where, again, you don't know what's in that box. And if we think about things like slot machines, when we pull that lever, we don't know which combination is going to come up, but there's a lot of anticipation, excitement, hope coming into that sort of process of pulling the lever. So same thing happens when you're thinking, okay, there's something in this box and it could be something really cool. So if all that hope and excitement, these positive rush of emotions, even dopamine is involved in all of this, is, getting me to open this box, feel that, that's going to reinforce the behavior. That's going to encourage me to keep going, buy more boxes, open up more. There are even rare Labubus out there. So the manufacturer says, okay, well, there's some Labubus. We're only going to make a small number of them. And so if you get one of those, then you open it up. How exciting is that, right? To think that you might get one of the really rare. They're pretty pricey, too, if you can get one of those to resell market. So that sort of behavior, even though you may end up with a Labubu you don't want in that box, you're still thinking next time. The next time I buy one, that's going to be the rare one, or that's going to be the Labubu model that's actually going to help me finish my collection.
What is behind the craze, Jing? How did these Labubu dolls get as popular as they are?
So this sort of a collectible doll or even blind boxes, none of this is new. If we think back to like Beanie Babies, Cabbage Patch Kids, and so on and so forth, this has always been a thing. But with social media nowadays, the spread of these sort of trends is much faster. So we get this sort of worldwide spread of Labubus. And it started with celebrities hanging these little dolls off of their bags, purses. And as soon as people see that, they're like, that's kind of interesting. I think you described them as sort of like gremlin looking, right? They look a little bit unique. And so when people see that, they're curious. If that starts spreading, the word of mouth just goes a lot faster now with social media. So it's no longer celebrities by the time it spreads to the common people, I guess. It's influencers unboxing. People love watching things like unboxing videos because you get this vicarious sense of excitement with the unboxer. So you're feeling excitement when you watch that person be excited about opening their box of whatever Labubus they purchased. So with that sort of spread through social media, it picked up speed very quickly.
I love that you're bringing this forward and giving us something to think about here, from the unboxing and the influence of social media to this overconsumption. Are there things that we should take away from this and maybe consider, modifying our behaviors, for example?
Yeah, I think that my biggest concern with these sort of blind box trend is that it almost normalizes the idea that you can and should buy stuff that you don't want. You're literally paying money for something where you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to want that or like it because I don't know what's in it. And so that's creating a lot of, again, overconsumption, collecting things we don't want, discarding things we don't want. So the thing with Labubu specifically is that this is just one specific trend. And every trend has a shelf life. Labubus are not going to be popular forever. The next big thing will take over at some point. And as these dolls saturate the market, everyone's got one. Maybe some people even have counterfeit ones, copycats. At that point, the people who initially bought Labubus, they're going to say, I don't want this anymore. I'm moving on to the next thing. And so I would encourage consumers to be just a bit more mindful and not get caught up in that excitement and that anticipation of, oh, I could be getting something great if I just bought this box. So you engage in that sort of gambling behavior. So just pause for a moment and think about, what are you buying and why are you buying it?
You've certainly given us something to think about, and I really appreciate it. Jing, thank you very much for joining the show.
Great, thank you.
Jing Wan is an associate professor of marketing at the University of Guelph. There are fallouts from this craze around the Labubu doll, from overconsumption to the dopamine hit that comes from the what am I going to get in the box kind of gambling behavior. Something to think about the next time you go after the latest trend. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Friday mornings are chock full of regular features on this show, including our Friday 4 Roundtable. Guests joining us to talk about the week's big stories. That starts in 30 minutes' time at 11. Before we get there, putting the spotlight on women's sports in a new book and checking in with Waterloo Region sports and entertainment. Our Kitchener Panthers next on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and
Rogers TV.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west, Jack, take my way, it's the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. Well, it winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66.
some Chuck Berry for Guelph Dean, number 74 on our official listeners list. And as we learned in the last 30 minutes, good guy. You got to be if you're from Guelph. How about that story of the entire neighborhood pitching in to find the lost cat, Ruby, who eventually ended up in Toronto. But that's the story as it went. The neighborhood rallied. Good Guelphites you are. And Guelph Dean wanted to hear Route 66 on our All Request Friday, featuring car tunes on the program today. On Friday mornings at this time, we also check in with the Kitchener Panthers, a segment we call WRSE Weekly, Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment. That is the entity that operates both the Kitchener Panthers and the KW Titans. It is baseball season, and Shanif Hirani is the general manager of our Kitchener Panthers. Good morning, Shanif.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. And I think that you're probably doing pretty okay yourself these days.
I am. We're coming off a great week. We're ready to build in the second half and finish the season strong.
Absolutely. You are coming off a great week. When last we talked, things were not looking like this, but this past week, winners of 3 of 4, including 3 in a row, and one of those 3 against the league-leading Welland Jackfish. What does a win like that mean for your ball club, Shanif?
I think for a team like us that's a lot younger than some of these teams and has a little bit less experience, it just proves to us that we can compete with the best in the league. It gives us a little bit of confidence, and it's something that we can build off of because we do have 2 more games against them before the end of the season.
The Jackfish losers of just 9 games, single digits all season, and one of those 9 losses at the hands of the Kitchener Panthers. What has turned things around this past little bit for the team, Shinif?
I think earlier in the year, we had a lot of tough breaks. We had some guys coming in and out of the lineup. We had some injuries as well. But the guys seem to be rallying around each other and taking it upon themselves to turn this thing around. We've started to have some breaks go our way. It's building a little confidence, and the guys realize that we're not what our record shows and that we can compete with these teams.
What gives you confidence as you head into this second half of the season?
Well, we have a couple new players coming in who I think are going to be able to help reinforce what we're trying to do here. We've been struggling a little bit on the pitching side, even though as of more recently, they've really stepped it up. But just adding some depth and some talent to our roster, I think is going to be huge for us down the stretch run.
On the road tonight in London to face the Majors, and then back home Sunday at Jack Couch to take on the Guelph Royals. What can we expect at Jack Couch on Sunday afternoon?
We're looking forward to it. We're playing our rival Guelph Royals. We've played them well this year. We've won 3 out of the 4 games against them, and they're right ahead of us in the standings. So we're looking to hopefully take some of that good mojo the Blue Jays have and win some games at home in front of our fans.
Win some games at home in front of your fans like the Blue Jays. How about those Blue Jays lately, Shinif? You must be, and the team must be excited by this as well.
It's awesome. It's great to see for obviously the Blue Jays, but just baseball in general. When summer rolls around and the Jays are playing well, there seems to be a different feeling around the sport and around the city. So it's exciting to see, and we hope that we can sort of continue that on here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Baseball in general, as you mentioned. When the Jays are playing well, I'm sure I know just from talking to folks on this show, there's a whole lot more interest in the game. But how are we doing? Because I know the Panthers do a lot of outreach work with young baseball players in the community. How is baseball in the region these days?
It's going really well. We're fortunate to have a lot of young players come out to our games. For example, on Sunday, we're going to have the Waterloo U9 Tigers come out and be on the field with our players and get to experience what it's like. So baseball I think it's healthy. I think the Jays being good is certainly something that helps grow the game, because you see those young players that look up to them and look up to our guys as well. And it just shows them that it's something, if they want to do it, they can be successful and people will back them.
Who were you looking up to, and what got you into the game?
Well, since I was born and raised in Kitchener, I went to a lot of Panthers games when I was younger and watched those teams that were extremely successful. And then, of course, I've been a Blue Jays fan my whole life. So just being able to watch those teams, they struggled a little bit when I was younger. But I vividly remember those 2015 and 2016 teams where they made those deep runs into the playoffs, and it just sort of continued to fuel my love for baseball.
Were you able to, or how were you able to progress through the game as a kid from Kitchener to reach the levels that you reached?
I was fortunate that growing up we had baseball facilities that continued to pop up throughout the city. So I was able to work on my game. It took a lot of hard work and practice and repetition, and I was fortunate to be able to play for some really good programs in the area. And eventually, when I received the scholarship, it was kind of a culmination of all that hard work. But it's just a lot of practice and working on your game.
Well, let's keep the good times rolling with the Panthers this weekend. Good luck in London tonight, and we'll see you back at Jack Couch on Sunday afternoon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Shinif. Shinif Hirani is the general manager of the Kitchener Panthers, joining us to talk about Waterloo Region sports and entertainment and its summer organization, which is the Panthers, of course. In the other season, it's the KW Titans for WRSE, Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment. And as mentioned, 3 out of 4 the Panthers have won. So they've put a little distance between themselves and the Brantford Red Sox in the bottom of the Intercounty Baseball League standings. And they are nipping at the heels of both Guelph and Toronto are the Panthers. Just a game and a half back of the Royals, and the Maple Leafs are the Panthers coming into this weekend. And, of course, they get that game on Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock at Jack Couch Park against the Royals. So that will mean an awful lot in the standings at this point in the season. Tonight, it's off to London to take on the second-place Majors. London just 2.5 games back of Welland in the Intercounty Baseball League standings, so playing very well. And they've won back-to-back games, the Majors. So the Panthers will have to shake off their loss to Barrie that followed their 3 straight wins and try to get back on a winning track against London tonight, and then get ready for Guelph. Again, 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon at Jack Couch. You can get tickets at the gate or at KitchenerPanthers.com. Take a quick break. When we come back, the focus on women's sports and a new book that puts the focus right there. We'll tell you about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A little bit of Pearl Jam and some rear view mirror for Steve on this All Request Friday here on the show. We are playing your car tunes by request all day, as many as we can play before we're done this afternoon at 1. Right now, it's time to go a little bit in a different direction with sports. We just checked in with the Kitchener Panthers and WRSE Weekly. But a new book, Canada's ABCs of Who I Can Be, focuses on 26 Olympians, Paralympians, and Special Olympians that you should know. Let's learn more from the author of that book, Bronwyn Corrigan, who joins us this morning. Good morning, Bronwyn.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much for making the time for the show. Why the book? Why did you decide to write it?
So there's a really similarly named Australian book, A to Z of Who I Should Be, and I just thought that was so cool when I saw it come out a few years ago, and it featured 26 Australian female non-binary athletes of all different levels, and I thought, oh, I can't wait for the Canadian version to come out, and a few years went past, and I thought, all right, I guess I'm writing the Canadian version. So just started this past winter, and I'm so excited that it was able to be published on Canada Day this year.
Absolutely terrific. The perfect time for it. Do you have an athletic background yourself? Was that part of the inspiration here?
Absolutely. Yeah, I grew up playing soccer. I completely idolized the Canadian women's national soccer team. Grew up following them around, playing soccer and kind of dreaming of that. It fizzled out a little bit, but I made the shift to rugby. But really just thinking how much I would have loved having this book when I was younger, to be able to look up to so many different athletes. But absolutely, I loved the Canadian women's national soccer team, still do. And you can definitely see that in the book. There's a few athletes from the team.
You talk about wishing you had had a book like this when you were younger. Is that the intended audience, young people, young athletes?
It really is, but honestly, there's been so much positive feedback from friends of mine who do have young children who say, oh, I'm so glad that they have this to look to read about and to learn about, but also friends of mine, the fully grown adults who are learning and having a great time. So as cool as they think it is to have every young kid, you know, girl, boy, whoever, have this on their shelf and have it be very normalized to learn about athletes of all different sports and backgrounds, it's also a very cool opportunity for big kids, grown-ups too, to learn something new and to maybe learn about some athletes and different sports they hadn't heard about before.
Well, what are those sports? If you've got 26 different athletes, are they all from different disciplines?
Many of them are from different disciplines, yes. So we have sports that may be a little bit more commonly known, the soccer, hockey, basketball, but I really wanted a diverse group of athletes in sports. So there's some sports that people may not have heard about or don't know much about. So there's goalball, there's fencing, there's Paralympians who competed in sports like downhill skiing that I've had some really cool conversations with people who ask me, how do athletes who may have a visual impairment compete in alpine skiing? And it's a really cool opportunity to learn a little bit more. And this particular athlete in the book, Vivian Forrest, actually had a microphone that was connected with her coach, who was kind of giving her feedback on how to navigate the hill. She does have a visual impairment. But I think it's such a cool opportunity for people to realize that there's so many different ways to be active, and sports definitely don't have to look the way that you thought they did. And so there's been some really cool lessons learned from a lot of my friends who've read it.
You mentioned your history in soccer and rugby, and I'm just thinking today, Bronwyn, I've said this on many an occasion, it feels to me as though women's sports more generally is kind of having a moment right now. We've got the PWHL, which is expanding. We've got the WNBA franchise coming to Toronto, all of these different things. What do you think of the moment that women's sports is in right now?
Oh, I'm just so excited because, people are saying, women's sports is having a moment. But what I love is that it's not just a moment. This is just the beginning. And, for folks who maybe it's just brought to their attention, they're thinking, finally women's sports is in the media and being reported on. But they definitely haven't seen, the decades of work that has gone on before this for athletes who put in the work to get to women's sports to this point. And I really think it's just the beginning. I've shared before that, like I said, my dad and I drove around and flew around Canada watching the national soccer team play growing up. And I watched them play in glorified city parks growing up with Christine Sinclair, Diana Masson, these huge names playing in pretty rundown parks to, flash forward a couple decades. And I saw them selling out BMO Field. And I mean, that's only the span of 20 years. So I'm so excited for where the next 20 years is going to take women's sports, with it being present. And I'm so excited for the next generation of athletes growing up where it's not a question of where am I going to play after, I've done youth sports or something. It's which league am I going to go to? There's so many different options now. And I love that it's just so normalized now that we do have the PWHL. We have the Tempo coming to Toronto. We have the Northern Super League. It's in the media. And I'm super excited that young girls growing up aren't going to know a time when there wasn't these opportunities.
Where can we get our hands on your book, Canada's ABCs of Who I Can Be?
It is available on Amazon. If you just search that name, it'll pop up, and you can get your copy there.
Kudos on the great work. Really looking forward to going through it. And thanks very much for joining the show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bronwyn Corrigan is the author of Canada's ABCs of Who I Can Be, a new book that showcases 26 Olympians, Paralympians, and Special Olympians that you should know. And as you heard right there from the author herself, you can get it on Amazon this very moment. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. To hear some Mercury Blues by Dave Lindley on your All Request Friday here on the show. We're playing your car tunes, Yuta, at number 49 on our official listeners list as we continue our climb towards the astonishing number of 100 names on our official list of listeners. I used to joke the 33 listeners of this show, and slowly we added to it. And this week we got more intentional about adding to it. But never would I ever have believed that by the end of the week we could be knocking on the door of triple digits listeners. If you want to get your name on that list, yeah, there might be a skill testing question. You got to prove your loyalty to the show, but drop me an email, mike@570news.com. We'll continue cramming the numbers and names in there. Only a few more names or slots available until we reach 100. If we go beyond that, I can't keep track anymore. Like, there's only so much room between these ears. An update from the 570 News Center is coming up, and then our Friday 4 roundtable gathers on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Friday between 11 and 12, we do gather together some guests to discuss the week's big stories. It's called the Friday 4 because 3 guests plus yours truly, the host, makes for 4 people. We discuss 4 of the big stories from the week. You see how it works? It's very elementary at the end of the day. And much to discuss today with our guests, who include Janice Jim, the Vice President of Cycle Waterloo Region. Janice, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well. Thank you very much for being here. Julie Callflesh is with us as well, Director of Fundraising and Communications with Sanguine Health Center. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Mike.
And we also have Caitlin Kilgore, the co-owner of Dream Team Video Productions, who will be joining us momentarily, but that rounds out our Friday 4 for this day. Let's start, and Janice, I'll throw it to you first. Just a simple way. I've been referring to it all morning as the verdict. I think everybody knows what we mean by that. The not guilty, the acquittal yesterday of 5 junior hockey players connected to that sex assault in a London hotel back in 2018. What's your response, reaction to the verdict as delivered yesterday?
I think it brings up a lot of topics that we as a society and sports culture need to discuss. The bar for the verdict is, for a guilty verdict is very high. And the victim went through, a ringer for the trial. They were cross-examined for many days. And that's like a traumatic experience. And I think the experience will discourage future, people from speaking out, victims from speaking out in the future. So right now we need to, as a community, show support for assault victims, and also educate, the younger athletes on consent and positive, like education and all that. It's a moment, I think, for us to use and support the victims.
I like the way you describe that, a moment that we can use. I truly hope we don't miss the opportunity here, and that's what it is, to move forward, to have these important conversations around consent, around sexual violence, etc. And your point about the bar for a guilty verdict is very well taken. I said this earlier, I'll say it again. Not guilty does not mean innocent. There is a difference there, and it's really important that we make that clear. And then also, Janice, your point on what the complainant in this case went through, the woman we only know by the initials EM. But just imagine 9 days in court cross-examination about what happened in that hotel. Just incredible stuff. I can't imagine what that would have been like. Julie, we'll bring it over to you. Thoughts on the verdict?
Well, I think much like Janice said, my reaction was frustration. I feel sad. I feel angry about it. I have to be honest, I didn't follow this case particularly closely because I think that in some ways the outcome was pretty predictable. And that's because we are existing in a system that I believe is deeply flawed and is structured in a way that often protects men, and especially men who have power and resources. And all the while, the default is to not believe women. And yet we know that there are stats out there where, over 30% of women in their lifetime will experience some form of sexual assault. Only 6% of those assaults ever get reported or get taken anywhere because, there's dismissal in the, police system. There's judges that maybe don't have the right experience or expertise to be able to handle these types of cases, to be able to understand through a trauma-informed lens what it's like for those victims to come forward. So I think it's unfortunately, it is a moment, and we're having lots of moments right now. I mean, P. Diddy, Trump, like, why are we waiting for a list to know that this individual has committed heinous crimes? Epstein, so many others. And so this lesson that we keep learning as women is that it isn't safe to come forward because you will not be believed. And so I think something awful happened in that hotel room. I think there were varying degrees of consent, but consent isn't just something that's given at the beginning of an evening. It's something that can change. I also think that with a power dynamic, it's difficult to give consent. So, while I don't know exactly, we don't know exactly what happened in that room, I choose to believe the victim. Why would you come forward and put yourself out there, knowing what the outcome is going to be? And so I was thinking about this, Mike, and what do we do? And I think that certainly this can be a really heated topic. And especially when, you have men in your life who don't hate women or would never do something to harm women, but it's about the system. And so we need men with platforms to be speaking up about this. We can't change the system without that help and without that understanding. So I encourage everyone to have conversations with the women in your life about this. Talk about how they feel about this and be open to what they say. This is about a system that is, broken and doesn't work for many, many people. And, it's an outcome that could easily have been predicted. And so that's really where I go with all of this.
Well, and I would add to those conversations, Julie, because you just make me think, and I'll put this to my fellow guys here, to have conversations with their sons if they have those sons, because you talk about something awful happening in that hotel room. And I think that's a given, regardless of what the letter of the law determined in all of this. Something awful happened, and 5 young men were a part of it. So if one of those young men were your son, how would you feel about his participation in something awful? And I think there's conversations that we can have with young men in our lives too.
I agree.
Julie Callflesh, Janice Jim, Caitlin Kilgore with us on our Friday 4 roundtable this morning as we discuss the week's big stories, get some different perspectives on them. How about the idea of lowering the voting age here in Canada? Britain's going to do it. Other countries have done it. Should we do it here in Canada? Conversations continue with our Friday 4 roundtable on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Friday 4 Roundtable is an opportunity to get some different perspectives on the week's big stories. With us around the virtual table this morning, Caitlin Kilgore, who's the co-owner of Dream Team Video Productions, Janice Jim, Vice President, Cycle Waterloo Region, and Julie Callflesh, Director of Fundraising and Communications for Sanguine Health Centre. Caitlin, I'll start with you on this one. Lowering the voting age to 16. Britain has pledged to do it ahead of the next election. Now the question's being asked, should we do it here in Canada? So I'll ask you, what do you think of 16-year-olds casting ballots?
Yes. Yes. Because I have so many receipts to back this up. I remember grade 7, our school trip that year was Ottawa. On our way to Ottawa, we had to do debates. We had started social studies. We were learning about this kind of stuff that we were about to go see firsthand. One topic that was the number one debated topic on our bus for the trip in our groups: can we lower the voting age to 16? If I can drive at 16, those are laws, road laws and everything that we're used to and that have been in. Once you turn 18, the world's already been chosen for you, and you get to join in as an adult with really no prior say. And let's be honest, once you've hit 18, you're kind of out of school, all that information, all that education is kind of gone. So now you're just kind of sitting there going, okay, parties and names, pick one, gone. I think it's also going to really help push, I don't like to use the word maturity level, but I think it's really going to help open up the youth to really get involved and understand the levels of government, who has what, and it's going to get them more involved and understand how these things work and how these things run. And when I was in high school, every single election, we would do the same vote. And at the end of the day, they would tell us what the results were. And our results always were so different from the actual results. I think it would be very, very smart to give that bit of a younger youth the power to use their voice and say, hey, if we're coming into this world soon, I want my say for what's about to happen and the world that I want to live in, and I want all of us to be able to succeed in.
So in the interests of transparency here, I'm not exactly warm to the idea of lowering the voting age, but I'm a cranky old man. When we talked about it on the show earlier this week, our guest touched on something that really did resonate with me, and you get into it a little bit there, Caitlin, where at the age of 16, you are very engaged, likely through your studies at high school, and that can be habit forming then. You start voting then, the likelihood of continuing to vote is higher. And I can get behind that idea. So though I'm still not exactly warm to it overall, that argument certainly resonates with me, and you touch on it there. Janice, what about you? What do you think about giving 16-year-olds the power to vote, the responsibility of that?
Caitlin gave a lot of good examples. I think it's a great idea because our voter turnout is so low, in the 30s, 30, 34, 35%. And this is a great way to, increase civic engagement. And like Caitlin said, they're informed. They're in the middle of their studies. That's the right time for them to go and kind of participate directly in democracy. Like she said, all the schools are already doing mock votes. Why not, let this new group of informed citizens vote? Like, what a great way to introduce them to the system. And they could, that could be part of practical education. And yeah, it's great for our society. We need people to vote and to speak up and to be engaged. And they're just entering the age of adulthood, and this is a great way for them to participate. And it's habit forming. Like, once you vote, you realize your voice matters, and it'll lead to more voting in the future.
It's interesting. When we talked about this earlier this week, I shared this, and again, completely anecdotal. And I know she can't be listening right now because she's at the University of Ottawa, but our daughter at 16, we had conversations about politics, obviously, around the dinner table a lot. And she was full on with quote unquote Juggy. We called Jugmeet Singh. That was the nickname. Loved his style, loved his presentation, loved his social media. When she turned 18, as she did this past year, and voted in Ottawa as a student, was one of those young people you hear about who voted conservative. What a difference from 16 to 18 for her. Again, completely anecdotal, one kid from the Farwell household. But Julie, I'll bring it over to you on the idea of lowering the voting age to 16.
Yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. Like, I see the value of having an opportunity to embed it into their learning in school. And, they take the civics class. To be able to actually apply that in a real setting would be interesting. I know my kids were really engaged in previous elections when they learned about it in school. Like, they would have questions and opinions, and it was always interesting to talk to them about that. I don't think it's going to do much to improve voter turnout. I think, sure, we add another cohort who can vote, but it's still going to be the same types of people voting likely. But I do like the hook of, well, maybe if we get the habit forming before they're out of school, like maybe that will improve voter turnout. So yeah, I don't see the harm in it. I think it would be an interesting experiment, and we should keep an eye on the UK and see what happens there.
So I find this, and Caitlin, you touched on it, and maybe you want to weigh in on this one first. Just as I'm listening to the three of you, and I've been thinking on this myself, and Caitlin, you made reference to the driver's license, right? So I'm starting to think these ages that we put on things, how arbitrary are they anyway? So for example, if we take voting from 18 down to 16, what about drinking from 19 to 16? What about the Youth Criminal Justice Act being amended so that you are now an adult at 16 instead of 18? Anything like that we have attached this seemingly arbitrary age limit to? Should we be looking across the board at maybe adjusting these things?
That's definitely a question that anyone who feels one way would bring up. And then I think it's also a very gray area, because I remember when my mom turned legal drinking age in Canada, they swapped it up and she couldn't. And that made her so upset. And I always remember that. But I think sometimes maybe you really do have to kind of take a push back and look at the age of everything, because the world and the way a 16-year-old was raised and how they acted and their entire exposure 20 years ago is nowhere near what a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old has to go through today and the world that they're exposed to. So some might make the argument that because the youth have all this access to the internet in the palm of their hands 24/7 to find whatever they want, at 16, they should be just as informed as we were when we were 18 if they have the ability to get all this information. Okay, but now it's the internet. Are you getting your information on actual websites or TikTok? And that's where the card kind of plays out. Same thing, we have different countries around the world with different drinking ages, and that all kind of combines into their own culture and how they see and use things differently as well. But I think when it comes to the idea of voting versus the idea of driving and buying lottery tickets, I think it's a bit of a better step when it comes to looking at ages. And then people will be like, well, what about 14? I think 16, because that's where you get your driver's license. That's kind of like the age where you're like, I'm not a kid anymore, and still a kid. But that's where you kind of feel that I want to be an adult. I want to feel more like adult, and I want to be treated like an adult. All right, we're going to put it in the palm of your hands, and let's see how you do.
A lot was made of this past election that the boomers, quote unquote, elected Mark Carney and the Liberals. So essentially, the boomers made decisions for the mid-teenagers. What if it was the other way around, you boomers? We'll turn the tables on you and see how the 16-year-olds would vote. Caitlin Kilgore, Janice Jim, Julie Callflesh with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We have talked about the verdict and lowering the voting age. Still to come with our roundtable this morning. What happens when the entire world learns about your affair? And the region of Waterloo criticized for its attempts to clear an encampment in Kitchener. Those conversations coming up with our Friday 4 Roundtable this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, we have all request on Fridays here on the program, along with our Friday 4 Roundtable. And Christine's request is some Highway to Hell by AC/DC. That was requested by a number of people, but number 61 on our official list of listeners, Christine was the first to ask for AC/DC on this All Request Friday, playing your car tunes on the show. With us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning, Julie Callflesh is here. Julie is the Director of Fundraising and Communications with Sanguine Health Centre. Janice Jim, Vice President, Cycle Waterloo Region, and Caitlin Kilgore, co-owner of Dream Team video productions, a story that we covered on the show this week. Canada's federal housing advocate expressing concern to the region of Waterloo over its plans to clear the encampment at Weber and Victoria. Julie, I'll start with you on this one. What do you make of the federal housing advocate's criticism of our regional government in this regard?
I mean, that's interesting because we need more support federally and provincially to be able to house folks. So what I will say about clearing this encampment, doing work in this space and knowing the impacts on the ground, there are definitely some concerns that we have about clearing this encampment around, the fact that there just isn't enough, there's nowhere for people to go right now. So if you look at the point in time count from the fall, 2,300 people in Waterloo Region, 2,300 people in Waterloo Region are homeless right now. And that's just the folks that we have eyes on. And so, and there's probably about 600, 700 shelter beds at any given time. So just do the straight math. And now, so in terms of this particular encampment and any encampment in general, this is not the end goal. We don't want folks to have to live in encampments. We should not want that as a society. But as I just pointed out, that's the math and that's where we're at. Folks have nowhere to go. And so, I think that I understand why the region needs to clear this encampment. What really frustrated myself and agencies and colleagues in this work is that the region should have come to the Plan to End Chronic Homelessness, the co-creators table, and had a conversation with the 100+ agencies who participate in those meetings actively every month, 3 to 4 hours of their time at this table to help the region solve chronic homelessness. And in a moment when they had an opportunity to utilize that group, they didn't, because we would have worked with them to help try to find solutions. They gave a generous timeline. So they could have just done that in an informal way. It didn't necessarily need to be a bylaw. We're seeing this all over the region. There's been encampments cleared in the last month. I know down in Cambridge. I understand the frustration on the other side as well. It's just that, meaning people who go to parks and maybe don't want to share their space with folks who are living there. But it isn't their fault. It's their circumstance. And it's based on policy failure. It's based on a lack of housing and affordable housing. And now at this point, deeply therapeutic housing, because we have a drug crisis along with a housing crisis. And at some points they intersect, not always, but we're creating a much bigger problem where people are deeply unwell and housing them is becoming more and more complicated every day. So I went on a little bit of a rant. I hope I answered your question about the region's stance. I think, this is something that's very personal to me and the work I do. And yeah, it's deeply flawed. We shouldn't be evicting folks from their last resort place to live until we can find a proper solution.
And I'm glad, Julie, that you mentioned the intriguing part of this with the federal housing advocate expressing this concern when we know, and this can't be stressed enough, upper levels of government have got to, this is not a problem that Waterloo Region or Toronto or Ottawa or Red Deer can solve on its own. The upper levels of government have got to get involved in this. Janice, I'll bring it over to you. What do you think of our approach here in the region to clearing that encampment at Weber and Victoria?
It's very problematic, as Julie stated. They came up with a plan. They just didn't implement it. And this plan was done in consultation of, all the affected groups, and they should have just put that into action. And now, they're being reprimanded by the housing advocate for their policy. like Julie said, it's a very complex problem, and we can't just blame the region. The federal and provincial governments have to help out as well. It is the lack of affordable housing. It's the cost of living crisis, and also the drug support network. Doug Ford got rid of supervised consumption sites, and now the rates of overdoses are skyrocketing, and the heart hubs they promised are not. I don't think there are any, or maybe there are one or two in place in the province. The Kitchener one, I don't think it's active, and those are life-saving places for people. I read the article about why people choose to stay in encampment. One of the reasons is they watch out for each other. If they're using, they take care of each other, that when the government got rid of the supervised consumption sites, that's worsening this problem. So yeah, I don't know what to say, but like Julie said, it needs to be a community-based solution.
Caitlin, your thoughts?
I know we've had conversations on this before with this group, and I always really enjoy it because it really puts the nail through. The one thing that I see the most of is, where is the public education? Where is the information that on any given day, that could have been you? It's just the card you were drawn. And I would love to know if we are still teaching children the way I was taught, that you live on the streets, you're a drug addict, you chose that, it's your fault. Why should I help you? You made that. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? And then you grow up and you realize how quickly you have no control and everything can just fall and slip and go away. You lose your job. You can't find another job. Now your house, you have to sell your house. You've gone down to renting. Maybe now you're renting. Maybe you're living in your car. Now you can't make your car payments. So now they've come and repoed your car. And now you are in these situations. But I think the one thing is, with public education on our end of things, being like, the subconscious that we have, what we have been taught by schooling and by the media and by the government, to look at unhoused people as these dangerous people. They've made these choices. Why should we help them? Let's just keep moving them. So as long as they're out of our sight, it's out of our mind. But when we don't have the programs in place, like Julie said, 600-700 beds for the Tri-Cities? Are you crazy? That's nothing. That is less than nothing for what we need. So like we've talked about before, there's so many different pillars. There's so many different layers to the pillars. But if all people care about at the top end is just clearing it, so then for everyone else, it's out of sight and out of mind, that's not a solution. You are just making the problem so much worse. And I think when we just keep saying, we're going to do this, and that's the focus, they really need to say, we're going to do this, but while we're doing this, this is all happening around it to help and support. Like, it's just a double-edged sword most of the times.
I certainly, like you, Caitlin, have thought about, in this era of affordability, or the lack thereof, how many people might be a paycheck or a job loss away from a really bad time, and what does that look like for them? It does cross my mind often, to say the very least. Caitlin Kilgore, Julie Callflesh, and Janice Jim with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, so you're at a concert, but you're not there with your partner in life. You're there with somebody else's partner in life, and the kiss cam ends up on you. Now what? We'll talk about it on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. With us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning, discussing the week's big stories, Janice Jim, Caitlin Kilgore, and Julie Callflesh. Janice, I'll start with you on this last go-round of a topic, because it's one that just doesn't seem to want to go away. About a week ago, A tech CEO and his human resources director, manager were at a Coldplay concert together, locked in a very comfortable embrace. And when the camera swung over onto them, they quickly tried to duck away from said camera. Apparently, they were there as a couple, even though each had another spouse. How do you feel about the Coldplay affair and all that has happened since?
I would say it was a very welcome distraction on Twitter on that work day. It was like the Super Bowl on Twitter. I don't like laughing at people's misfortune, but they knew what they were getting into. There are signs that it's a public, place that there's signs when you're entering that you might appear on camera, and no better people to laugh at than tech billionaires. So I don't really feel bad. They knew what they were getting into, and that's how it played out.
So the internet should just have a field day with these people's private lives, eh?
I guess so. They are in public. It's a public affair now. It's a little harsh, but that's the reality of the digital age that we live in.
That's a very good point, and I always come back to do clown things, get clown prizes, or something along those lines. Caitlin, your thoughts on the Coldplay affair?
I've had so much fun. The memes don't stop. The reels keep coming. And yes, like Janice said, you are in a public space. You have decided to do this horrible thing and have an affair. And you brought it into public in a giant suite at a Coldplay show with your coworkers, who are all kind of in on it from what I've heard. And that's the thing. In his statement I read, it's, I'm sorry to the company. I'm sorry to my family. I'm sorry. But let me play the victim card really quickly here. This was a private No, it wasn't. You want a private moment? Then go watch a Coldplay DVD on your couch at home. There you go. But I think one of my favorite theories my friend brought up to me, if they would have just quickly grabbed each other and kissed, none of this would happen. No one would have noticed, because there would have been no, literally we watched that guy's life flash before his eyes and Chris Martin go, I don't think they're supposed to be here together. I don't think that's right. And call everything. And, how are you supposed to react in that situation? But, the annual sacrifice of a CEO billionaire, it's happened. It's our summer tradition now. And we got it early, and now we have all summer to enjoy it. So, yeah, it sucks because I don't want anyone else being involved in this publicly besides the two of them. I don't want anything being brought in about his wife, his children, and their family, which we've started to see, and vice versa. And that's what sucks, is when you two made this decision and got caught in a horrific way, you now have to answer to all of your family and friends who are getting phone calls from reporters, who are getting asked at work, and who are getting asked at school. So it's like, yeah, they have to sit and go through all the funny things we're putting online, but imagine what it's like at home. And I just think, you know what? That was a choice you made, and karma.
There are certainly people impacted behind this beyond just the two, and the fun that we're all having with it from the outside looking in, I suppose. Julie, what do you think of this?
Yeah, all the things that were said, definitely agree. Feel bad for the partners who didn't know that they were going to get dragged into this. Those are real people's lives. For me, the point where I felt less empathy was when he released his statement, because it was so rooted in arrogance and, power. And I just, it was insincere. So I felt less bad at that point. And there's been a lot of the ageist comments about the woman, and, so it's brought up a lot of different things. It certainly is. It's trending and it's still going. I just, during the break, looked at my phone and saw another meme. So, it is definitely a moment for people right now. And I think that speaks to how people are feeling. They're frustrated with the fact that these rich, powerful men are not being held accountable in the way that they should be. And so this has gone to the court of public opinion and to social media, where we see how people really feel about, maybe some of the others out there who are not being held accountable. And I think that that's really what it speaks to.
Accountability, it is important. And listen, if it's going to be the internet police that holds you accountable, I mean, there's the internet police and then there's everybody else. Because as we've talked about, there are real people and real families behind this story that some of us are finding a welcome distraction. And you know what? That's okay, because there's a lot going on in the world. We had some heavy topics on the Friday 4 today, but we'll close on that note. Julie Callflesh, Director of Fundraising and Communications for Sanguine Health Centre, Janice Chim, the Vice President of Cycle Waterloo Region, and Caitlin Kilgore, co-owner, Dream Team Video Productions. Thank you all for your time on the show this morning, and have a great weekend ahead. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I mean, personally, I'd take a red Mustang. We talked about that earlier in our All Request Friday Cartoons edition when we played Mustang Sally. I've got a soft spot because it was the first car I ever owned. But Kathy said, I want to hear some Aretha Franklin and Pink Cadillac. So I can have the red Mustang. You can have the Pink Cadillac. You can have a little bit of your favorite cartoon played during our All Request Friday here on the program. We have 60 minutes left. We will squeeze in as many of those car-related requests as we can before 1. And, of course, we will open the phone lines, as we do, to end the show every week with Free Phones Friday. You know, I think Dylan's just being a keener. He's here early. So why don't we go to the phones right now before the noon update and start it off. Dylan, good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to call in and comment on the verdict.
Sure.
It's a touchy subject. I understand that. But since the verdict came down there a couple days ago, it's talked about in the media. Everyone, talks about the victim, how hard it is to prosecute and get a conviction, These 5 young men were found not guilty. From day one,
which is different than innocent.
See, even saying that, you're implying guilt.
No, I'm not. I'm just making it clear that not guilty in a court of law is completely different than innocent. That's just the fact.
Which implies guilt.
No, it doesn't.
Sure it does. If you're not innocent, you're guilty. You're one or the other.
Well, I guess if you want to make it that black and white, I suppose
And that's what I'm saying. That's the perception the public gets when people make these comments. That even though that these 5 young men were found not guilty, from day one they've been guilty, throughout they've been guilty, and now that they've been found not guilty, they're still being found guilty. None of us were in that room that night, and I'm not victim blaming here. I'm just saying no one knows except the people in that room what actually happened.
Dylan, I got to. Sorry, I know I'm interrupting. I got to get to the news. You want to hang on and keep talking when we're done?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't know how long the call would go. I understand Dylan's got a passionate point to make, and we'll continue as Free Phones Friday starts after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
knows about.
Bob and George both wanted to hear the best cartoon ever. I don't know, but it's from the greatest rock band ever. Red Barchetta by Rush on this All Request Friday. Let's dive into Free Phones Friday, open lines so we can hear from you. And Dylan has patiently waited. I appreciate that, Dylan. I'm sorry I had to interrupt, but the clock is the boss here.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, like I was saying, if bad things happened that night in 2017, then my heart goes out to this young lady. Honestly, it does. All you and I and the public, everyone outside of that room, really has to go on is this trial. This trial found those young men not guilty. So, since that verdict has come out, every time I've heard it on the radio, I hear, not guilty doesn't mean anything didn't happen. The assumption being, and the tone being, that even though these 5 young men were found not guilty, they're still guilty. They've been guilty from day one since they were charged. They all lost careers that potentially could make them millions and millions of dollars. They've paid the price. Their names were mentioned over and over and over on the radio because they're public figures. The victim's name was never once mentioned before or after the conviction. And again, I'm not saying we should be saying victims' names on the radio. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying these 5 people have paid a huge price, a massive price. And in the end, they're found not guilty, and yet they're still being called guilty.
Okay, so let's be clear. Nobody's calling them guilty, but we are making the distinction that being found not guilty in a court of law does not necessarily mean innocent. And you talked about what happened in that room. And you're right. None of us was there, so we only know through what was reported and recorded through the court proceedings. Would you agree, Dylan, that something pretty icky or awful went down in that room that night?
No. Why I say no is a lot of people are into a lot of different things. So is it something I would partake in? No. Is it something that I would look down on someone else or a group of people taking part in? No. What happens behind closed doors is none of my business. What my business is, was there a no, please stop, I want to leave, don't do this, and that was not found to be the case.
Okay, and so
what was found to be the case was that the judge couldn't trust what the victim was saying.
Absolutely. She called the evidence not credible or the witness not credible. I get you. So, and you know what? I grant your point. People are into different things, and hey, if that's what floats your boat, float away. It's up to you because you're adults, hopefully consenting adults, which is really critical in all of this, but hopefully consenting adults. So if one of those 5 young men was your son, how would you feel about the case?
I would be really mad right now.
Okay. So maybe you can understand part of the right. And if EM was your daughter, how would you feel?
Again, I would probably be very upset.
Right. So it's complicated, right? It's not as black and white as I know you want it to be.
Right.
Right. And the one more thing I'll say, and then I'll let you go on again. Just let me say one more thing. I'll bet you dollars to donuts, Dylan. Dollars to ding dang donuts that these careers are far from ruined. I'll bet you dollars to donuts Carter Hart is back in the National Hockey League before long.
Okay. Oh yeah, sure, maybe, possibly.
I'm betting you dollars to donuts.
They will never be the same. 10 years from now, when their name's Googled because maybe they scored a big goal or something, this articles of this is going to come up.
Huh.
And all I'm saying, the point I'm trying to make is that, due process was done and they were found not guilty. These undertones, every time the case is mentioned, that they were found not guilty, but they probably did something wrong. That's not right.
But you said you would have been mad if one of them was your kids, so they did something wrong, at least on some level, maybe not criminally.
Right, but like I say, the undertones, the way that things are being said is that even though they were found not guilty, they still broke the law. They didn't. And what that tells, well, you know what that says.
I guess it depends on what law you're talking about.
If you have a malicious person, like, I don't like Mike Farwell anymore. You know, I'm going to say that he did something. You're a public person. Just by me saying that, that's going to ruin your career.
No, it's not. See, this is where it gets, again, it's so complicated. It's not as black and white as you want it to be, because I have not put myself in the compromising position whereby whatever you say about me will stick.
So
right? So again,
so is it the act, you know, like that what happened in that room is uncomfortable for a lot of people?
Yes.
Is it just because
and we don't know what happened?
No. Like I said, if there was full consent,
right?
If there was
but we don't know.
Involved,
but we don't know that there was. This is the problem.
I'm just saying, if there was,
right?
Would you still have a problem with what happened in that room?
No. I'm sorry if that makes me a bad person, but no. If that's your thing, that's your thing. By all means,
and
fill your boots.
I think that what happened, even if it was full consenting, everyone in the room.
But see, Dylan, I get you.
And people would still have a problem with
it. But we're talking teenagers and alcohol. Anyway, it's
you're talking adults.
Yes, but they're still teenage. I'm sorry. And listen, I'm thinking of
18.
I got 18. You, dude, but 18, teenager. You can call them an adult if you want to. That's fine. You remember yourself?
I'm sure there's a lot of young adults that do a lot more that we wouldn't have done.
Oh, sure.
Years ago.
But fine. Young adults. You're right. But we're talking young adults, alcohol, and you and me both know, Dylan, what we were like when we were 18 and 19 compared to what we're like today.
Yeah. And
okay.
And
so that's
that. I'm sure there's plenty of regret on everyone's part. But again, I just want to reinforce the fact, not guilty.
All right.
Stop painting them as guilty.
Okay. I appreciate your call. I do. And I got to go again because the clock is the boss. It's important, though. It is a really important distinction that not guilty in a court of law by the letter of the law does not mean innocent. And by saying that, it doesn't mean these men are guilty. I'm just asking you to consider it's not as black and white as you want. We are complicated creatures. You've got young adults. I'll concede the adult part. Alcohol. And whatever happened in that room. It's very difficult to believe that there was actual full consent. I'm sure there is remorse amongst the entirety of that group. We got to go. It's the clock talking, but you get to talk right after this as Free Phones Friday continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Wait a minute. Is that a car song? Greg, official listener number 38, wanted to hear some Ozzy Osbourne and Bark at the Moon on your All Request Friday Cartoons edition. I don't know if it's an appropriate comparison, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, just thinking on what Dylan was talking about and the whole, what you want to do behind closed doors, by all means. Here's another aspect of this, though, completely thinking of the young men whose reputations are impacted by this, as Dylan wanted to point out. So I don't want to take the focus off the woman in all of this, because I think that's where our focus needs to be. However, if we will step away from that for a moment, is there a comparison here to, I don't even know the guy's name because I haven't followed, the Andy Byron, was that, whatever, the tech CEO and his mistress at the Coldplay concert. When you hold a certain position in life, maybe you ought to think really carefully about the activities you engage in. And if group sex is your cup of tea, maybe you're going to have to wait till your public career is over before you engage in it. I don't know. Does that come with maturity? Does that come with time? I remember a time, and I remember the year so well because it was my first year at this radio station. So it's 18 years ago. And a bunch of us from the station, and look, I'm a man in my 30s. I know well. I know better. I know things. And off we went to celebrate the holiday season, I had myself a share of drinks, and I took a cab home, as one would after having that many drinks. But I woke up the next morning to a number of text messages from people. I don't know why I'm even admitting this, my goodness, but a number of people who had seen me the night before. I don't remember seeing them. So I was drunk in public and not exactly proud of myself. I didn't do anything stupid, but I thought, is that the image that I want to put out there for people to see? Oh, there's Farwell stumbling around uptown Waterloo, a little tipsy. Okay, a lot tipsy. So I said right then and there, I'm not doing that anymore. And my friends used to tease me. We'd have backyard get-togethers. They're like, no pictures, right, Farwell? I'm like, that's right. No pictures. We're just going to have a good time, and we're going to keep it to ourselves. I don't know if I went off on a wrong tangent there, appropriate, inappropriate, or not, but I share with you on this show what's on my mind. And during Free Phones Friday, you can share what's on your mind. Doug, good afternoon.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, Doug.
Just a quick comment on that statement you just made. You know what? The problem is that even after your public career is over, you engage in a questionable activity and someone gets wind of it, it can still come back and bite you in the ass. And that's too bad. But it's a fact. And let me say this: I enjoyed that conversation with you and Dylan. Your patience, your logic are unequal, my friend. I'm this incredible. What I wanted to talk about was the flip side of that with the players in the NHL. The NHLPA right now is upset because they're being told they can't go back to their careers until the NHL's had a chance to review everything. And it's like, look, they've already been sat in judgment of who are you to do it. Oh, of course, they're worried about the integrity of the league. We're talking about a league that engages in gambling. The league has its own vices, and I guess they have the right to do that. But it's like they're being told that they're as you said, you may have been found not guilty, but not innocent. And it's like the NHL is going to try them all over again. And that, to me, is wrong.
Well, I hear you, Doug. I don't think it's going to be tried all over again. I think the NHL is doing what it needs to do from a PR perspective. And like I said to Dylan, I'll bet you dollars to donuts these players are back playing when the NHL has finished its review of the case. Bob, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Bob.
Hope you have a good weekend, sir.
Thanks, you too.
And about the Freedom Convoy.
Sure, Bob. Why not? Let's revisit that.
Well, they're supposed to be being fined or something. And I hope it's more than a fine. The two people that organized it.
Yeah, the sentencing hearing is underway. Yes.
And because since there were anti-vaxxers that supported them, not all of them were anti-vaxxers, but since then measles are coming back, and
Wait. So are you trying to blame the two people on trial right now for?
What I said is there's people in that group that were anti-vaxxers, and since they're
well, you know what? There are people listening to this show right now that don't believe in the power of vaccines. So what?
And I know, but the reason I said I think they made a mistake, and I hope they get nailed a little bit. See, I don't
understand. Who made a mistake?
The people that started the convoy.
Why? Because it got out of hand?
They were tying up the 911 numbers in Ottawa.
Well, I don't think the folks that were leading the convoy tied up the 911 numbers.
Supporters did.
Right. So this is what not their supporters. I think it would have been people in Ottawa calling to complain about the disruption, which is why I'm saying that maybe you think they made a mistake because it got out of hand. Mark, you're next on Free Phones. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Just further in that comment that Dylan was making, there's another entity involved in this whole process, if you look at the history of it, that really has a lot to blame, and that's Canada Hockey.
You're darn tootin'. Thank you for saying so.
Here's what's happened is they're very experienced Crown attorneys in London, and when a sexual assault happens, they're down to 2 or 3 of their top Crown attorneys who decide whether to proceed or not to proceed. And what happens is that they looked at it very carefully. They looked at the hockey players. They looked at the testimony that the girl was giving to the Crown attorney. And they decided, no, we can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, the magic words. So anyway, she goes and sues Canada Hockey.
Hockey Canada.
Or Hockey Canada. And Hockey Canada, which I have supported and you have supported, and like I put my kids through hockey, we get to put our payment through, and they've got a nice big monopoly over hockey. And so they settle with her. So they settle with her on the civil grounds, which is the balance of probabilities. And they decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. So she gets a couple $1 million. And then anyway, Hockey Canada goes back and says, we got to protect ourselves too. So we better go back and talk to these Crown attorneys in London and get charges laid. And this is where the whole thing comes in. And I think Hockey Canada, or Canada Hockey, whatever you want to call it.
It is Hockey Canada. And Mark,
I think they got a lot of blame in it.
Thank you for that. Because I got to get to the news again. The clock is the boss. I don't mean to be an interrupting host today, but I'm glad you brought up the Hockey Canada role in this because oh boy, with the slush fund. This is the Mike Farwell Show, Free Phones Friday, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Well, I left Kentucky back in 49 and went to Detroit working on assembly line. The first year they had me putting wheels on Cadillacs.
Oh, Johnny, one piece at a time, cartoons edition of All Request Fridays. That's for Nate, number 8 on our official listener list. The clock is the boss. Every time we clear a phone line, it fills back up. Free Phones Fridays continue. We'll get right to Kyle and Curtis and the rest of you. There's a line open now, right now, if you call. This is Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I'm in love with my car. Queen on your All Request Friday Cartoons edition as we're playing car songs by request today. That one from Kyle, number 6 on our official listeners list as we continue Free Phones Friday. And oh, look who it is. Good afternoon, Kyle.
You like that from Roger singing that, eh?
Very nice, very nice.
Anyways, I was thinking about you last night about electric bikes there, Mike, and you know what we should do? They come in 2-seaters. And I heard there's a place where the water flows like red wine, where we could get there. It'll take a few days. The little place called Aspen. Would you like to go? You and me on a little bike. You know how Dumb and Dumber did it. We could just sit in the back.
I mean, I like the Dumb and Dumber visual, but no, I don't want to go with you. No.
Wow. Are you saying that you couldn't handle me for that long?
Exactly.
I don't blame you, Mike. Anyways, you enjoy your weekend. I'm off to a bachelor party for the weekend.
Oh dear.
My cousin's getting married, so it's going to be you know what? We're just sitting at the cottage all weekend. We're doing a golf game tomorrow. There'll be no driving at all. We got everything is set up for Ubers and all that stuff, so we're set. But it'll be a good weekend, and hopefully the weather is nice. But there you go, Mike. Enjoy the weekend, and thanks a lot, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Have fun. And just quick on that note, because we were talking about these vehicles, and there's one posted on our show's Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Looks like I don't know. I really can't describe it. It's 4 wheels, though, and it was scooting down a multi-use trail at a pretty good rate of speed. And I posted it on our Facebook page wondering, we saw this on our way into Cambridge the other day. Couldn't figure out, it's moving fast. It's pretty big. Anyway, here's my thought on this. If it's not human-powered, so if you ain't pedaling it, you ain't pushing it, you ain't using your own power to move it, it should be licensed. How about that? And that goes for e-bikes. I'm sorry. You're not pedaling that thing, and you're just using a battery to make it move at up to 30 or more kilometers per hour. Come on with your coming on here. I think that's where the regulation needs to begin. Way too many of these contraptions on the roads these days for my liking, and not nearly enough regulation around them or requirements. Like, should you pass a test before you get behind or onto the seat of one of those things? It seems like that to me. Anyway, next to Curtis, number 16 on our official listeners list. Hey, Curtis.
Hi, how are you doing, Mike?
Good, thanks.
Happy Friday.
You too, sir.
I just wanted to find out, did you already play the Cars tune I wanted?
Yes, Let the Good Times Roll was much earlier today.
Yeah, I missed it. So if you feel like it was, you probably don't, because I know they're not your favorite band. If not, you despise them. But what about the Beatles?
I don't despise them. I don't despise them, but we're jam full of requests, Curtis. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to speak to the court hearing there and the not guilty plea. Obviously, a very touchy situation for both sides. However, what I have heard is that it wasn't a flat-out not guilty. It was that it just couldn't be proven. So this is why Hockey Canada is going through it, because there is a lot of details that they may not want to be associated with, that they could still be considered that they did do, even maybe they've admitted to some stuff. But it's just a really tricky slope as far as that goes to begin with. But the thing is, how often does the justice system fail to begin with?
Well, this is the thing, and let's go back to not calling it a justice system, please. It is a legal system. And as we've talked about on the show, the burden of evidence required to lead to a guilty charge is considerable. That is a considerable burden. So don't forget, too, the avenue is open for appeal. I suspect there will not be one, but we'll see where it goes. Chris, you're next on Free Phones Friday. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Mike, for having me on. Just in regards to Dylan's comment with the hockey players, I'm with you that there's a moral issue and it's a compromising situation and somewhat reckless. But you were strong on the fact that they weren't innocent, and I just wanted.
I'm just being clear that a not guilty verdict in court does not mean innocent.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying is one of the fundamentals is innocent until proven guilty. So if you're found not guilty, aren't you in fact innocent?
And I said the same thing to Dylan. Sure, but it's not as black and white as we want it to be. That's all.
Right.
But I get your point.
I'm just sort of saying, as we move forward, are we terming them innocent? Not social media. That's a tough one. Not at the coffee shop.
Yep.
But do we?
You know what you make me think of, Chris? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to make me think, like, this is how our legal system works. It does not declare someone innocent. It just declares them not guilty.
Right. And so I'm with you. It's just such a sticky situation.
Oh my gosh, it's awful. It's awful on so many levels. But listen, I take your point, and I worry a lot, quite frankly, when we impose our morality on others. As Dylan said, and I agreed with, if group sex is your thing, that who am I to say? Like, if right, consenting adults behind closed doors, I guarantee it's going to go on behind a lot of closed doors this weekend. Consensual group sex. That's the thing. Sorry if that makes prudes a little bit uncomfortable, but that happens. But then what we're saying here is, in this particular instance, our morality makes this a less than innocent interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for workshopping them with me on that. I appreciate that.
I appreciate the call. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. It is just all around. And I will just say again on this, I have a difficult time believing, frankly, that this many young people and the amount of alcohol consumed amongst all of them leads to an interaction that was consensual, the way we would want it to be. Full-on young adult consent. Not enough yet developed between the ears, and too much alcohol in terms of influence. My 2 cents. Free Phones Friday continues. Maybe you've got 2 cents to share. We'll take it. I'm going to cash it in at the end of the week. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Police stop my car.
All right, enough.
Police stop my car.
Fade down fast. It is July 25th, after all. Phil, you got a weird sense of humor. It is Cartoons edition of All Request Friday. And Phil wanted to hear official listener number 81, by the way, Police Stop My Car by Bob Rivers. And you request it, we play it. Back to the phones, Free Phones Friday. Zoltan, good afternoon.
Mike, it has been so long, and I have two minor items to discuss. I hope you don't bleep me too much. Okay?
Okay. Have my fingers ready.
All right. I love that. Oh, I love a guy with a finger. Okay. Look, the trial and so on and so on. You know, I really kind of sided with the woman after I read part of the stuff that was going on. Part of it was that she walked out of a room naked and on and on and on. There's many, many things that were written. And one of the things that really hit home, consensual sex. Is it consensual sex?
Consensual.
You have 5, pardon?
Consensual.
Consensual. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. No, that's fine.
Consensual sex. Is it consensual sex to have 5 men put their penis in your mouth?
Okay. Yes, I do believe one can consent to that if they choose to consent to that. I'm not certain that this reached the barrier for consensual. However, it also didn't reach the barrier in a court of law for guilty. You are feeling salacious today, Zoltan. Walter, good afternoon.
How are you today? Is this the Mike Stern show I'm calling here today?
My goodness, can you believe it? I'm blushing a little bit right now.
Listen, Mike, the first thing that came to mind when I heard that they got the not guilty verdict was, what do their mothers think?
Exactly. And their fathers. Let's not leave the fathers out here, Walter.
I know, you jumped right in on me there, but I mean, like all their peers and, they will never be looked at the same again. And in my view. Now, also, this is almost the age group that people want to have vote. I don't know.
They were of voting age. They were of voting age. They were already at a bar, so they're 19 plus.
Okay, so what? They were all of age, and that was what, in 18 this happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just pathetic. I mean, not only they ruin their careers, as everybody knows, but I mean, and then this woman too. What is she thinking? What are her parents have in the back of their mind? It's the whole thing is just a mess, eh?
No disagreement there. The entire story is very difficult to digest, for sure. Terry, Free Phones Friday, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. I thought that song that you played to enter the next segment was Police Nabbed My Dad, wasn't it?
No, Police Stopped My Car.
Oh, is it? Okay, I was mistaken. Yeah, going back to what Dylan was saying, they were found not guilty, correct. And you were saying about their careers might be ruined?
I never said their career. I'm the one that is insisting that their careers are likely not to be ruined. I suspect they will all be back playing hockey.
Yeah, I believe that too. Actually, one of them was already playing in Europe. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, Formanton was.
Yeah. So,
but the other guys are all NHL prospects, and I'll bet you Carter Hart ends up back in the NHL.
Yeah, Carter Hart was probably the best player out of those 5 by far. But the other guys were in the NHL, but they were fringe players at best. But this isn't I'm sure there's people running loose that have been acquitted that have done a lot worse than this. But going back to the NHL, I think the NHL right now is just saying, well, yeah, but the NHL has no credibility. This is, Craig McTavish, I don't know if you remember, he killed someone while impaired many years ago. He had a 20-year career after that. He served time in jail. He played. Dan Maloney got charged with assault right on the ice. Same with Todd Bertuzzi, a couple of Jimmy Mann, and a few others. So, yeah, if they're good enough, somebody will scoop them up. But the thing, too, is you got to remember is that the NHL, this is a league, like the caller said earlier, that they allow gambling. This is a league that allowed for decades headhunting. So, yeah, they'll be playing if they're good enough, for sure, Mike.
All right, Terry.
Have a good weekend, Mike.
Thanks. You too. Appreciate the call. What I find interesting in all of this, and I don't think it's right to get into the whatabouts, Though I'm sure there are people running around that have done worse. I don't think that's helping anything. What's so interesting to me in these continuing conversations is every one of us so far that has called in to talk about it has talked about the young men that were involved in this and what the impact is on them. There was another party here, a very young woman that was also involved in this. It's, boy, oh boy, I don't think we should forget that. I really don't. I hope we don't. Free Phones Friday. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Have you heard the story of the hot rod race with the Fords and Lincolns was setting the pace? That story is true, I'm here to say I was driving that Model A. It's got a Lincoln motor and it's really souped up. That Model A body makes it look like a pup's. Got 8 cylinders and uses them all. Got overdrive, just won't stall.
A hot rod Lincoln is what Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen are singing about by request for M in Guelph on this All Request Friday Cartoons edition. I'm sorry we couldn't get to every request today. We did as many as we possibly could. Thank you for all of them. Same thing for the phone lines, which have been so busy. We're not going to get to everybody, but we will get to Catherine before our time is done. Good afternoon, Catherine.
Good afternoon, Mike. Your first guest from the Women's Crisis Center said something about a loophole in the law. And I didn't quite understand what was the loophole. You know, is this...
Right. Catherine, I'm sorry. I don't remember loophole. I remember talking about the difficulty in proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but we'll have to go back and check on the archive of the show.
Okay.
Okay?
Because did they get off because it wasn't against the law?
Well,
I'll put that out there.
All right, Catherine, thank you. Essentially, with the ruling, that's the way it ends up. There was no criminal activity found here. And the witness, as described by the judge, was not found to be credible. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. You were touching a couple of days ago about teachers, either in universities, getting paid a ton of money. So would that also run in line with the CEO of Conestoga College, where he's getting a huge amount of money?
Yes, he's getting more than $600,000 a year, a ton of money. Wes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Is 99 taken?
I'm afraid, sir, it is. We are up to number 107, but I would gladly give you number 108.
Okay. I have to take it.
Yeah.
I was late. Okay.
Okay, so 108, that's your official number.
Okay.
Thank you,
now,
Wes.
Just shortly, those guys are not innocent to me, okay? I know it's 1 o'clock almost.
All right. I appreciate your call, and I appreciate your support of the show by adding your name to our official listeners list, which, yes, has grown to more than 100. I was selfish earlier today. I was greedy because we were so close. We were 10 names away from getting to 100, and now we've gone past that to 108. Never would I ever have believed that this goofy little idea would have grown the legs it has this week, but I should have learned by now to never underestimate you. So we collectively, I think, are the Farwell Show force. All 108 of us. We will be a force for good. We will be a force for change. We will be a force to be reckoned with. We are a force on this show. You can still get on the list if you want. The official Farwell Show listeners list. You may have to do something. Like one of these days, I might have to just call in a favor or something, and we collectively will be that force to be reckoned with. But for now, I have deep appreciation for your support of what we do here on the show. Thank you so much for that. Enjoy the weekend ahead, okay? We'll come back on Monday morning at 9 and start this all over again. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.